Now we're back to freecodecamp. The last one in the front development library section is React and Redux. It's just 10 tasks, but it still might take some time for us. I believe it's around half an hour, so I went through this already. I'm not going to read it all to you. As always, go through it yourself, and when you get stuck, then refer to my walkthrough for the solutions. What we need here is a constructor. It uses the props. Inside we need the super and then this .state. And we need an input that should be an empty string, and messages, which should be an empty array. So you can read that right here. And then we should already be done here. Let's move on to manage state locally first. You will see that most of these tasks, they build upon one another. So here the first 10 code lines are basically just what we've created in the last task, and now we are building on it. So here we have to add a handle change and a submit message. Let us start with the render though. It starts in code line 11 and we need to fix it in code line 16. And it's supposed to be an input field and a button. Don't forget the closing. And we also need an unordered list. So the idea is someone types something into this input field, confirms via the submit button, and then it should be displayed as an element of an unordered list. To be able to do that, we'll use onChange this.handlechange.bind this. And the value should be set to this.state.input. Now let's take care of the button. On click, we need this.submitMessage.bind using this. And then we want to have our submit. So this is going to be our button. And now let's take care of our unordered list. It should use this.state.message and then map. Let me just define x and I. And therefore, the return should be a list item using the key of I. X should be inside, and then we close it. So this should be the render. Let us take care of the handler change. It uses the event, then this set state, and we have input and message or messages. And we set that to events.target.value and this .state.messages. Let us take care of the submit message. And again, we have input and messages. Input is an empty string, and messages should be this.state.messages. And this state input. But don't forget the spread operator here. And then we should be okay. But it seems like I made a mistake somewhere. Alright, here there's a typo in code line 32. So it's messages, not message. Let me just correct this. And now we can already see it on the right hand side. So if I type something in, this will now appear as part of an unordered list when we submit it. So everything works as it should. Let's move on to extract state logic to Redux. We'll create our add first with the value of add. Then we define an action creator add message. It uses message, type is add. Now we need the message reducer. Use the previous state array and the action. And we can use the switch, for example, for action.type. We've got two cases. First case is our add, and the second case is the default case. Be careful here for the return. Once again, we need the spread operator here, like in the last task. So don't forget these 3 dots. And the default is the return previous state. And finally, we need to create our store. So use the redux.createStore for our store. And it uses the message reducer right here. Let us move on to use provider to connect Redux to React. And again, you can see it builds upon what we've created so far. Here we just have to go to code line 78 and we're going to render for our app wrapper. We need to return the provider and the display messages is nested inside. Don't forget the closing here. And this achieves the same thing that we've done prior. So again, we can type something in and it will be displayed as an unordered list when we submit it. But I've still missed something, let me check. Oh, we need a prop of store for provider, so I simply forgot that. And now it should work. Let's go to map state to props. We've got an empty array given here, const state. And we need to create our map state to props. It uses state and then returns messages and should be set to state. But again, I made a typo here somewhere. Yeah, right here, code line 4, it's map state props. But it should be map state to props. So just a simple typo. Let me just correct it. And then run it again, and now it should run. And it does. So sometimes it's a good idea to just copy paste it from the left hand side. Let's move on to map dispatch to props. So this time I just copy pasted const map dispatch to props. with a basic outline. And what do we need? It takes dispatch as an argument. It returns an object. The object should have a property of submit new message set to dispatch function. And this one takes the parameter for the new message to add when it dispatches add messages. And now we should be good here. Let's go to connect Redux to React. Looks like we've got a lot of code, but we start in code line 32 and the rest is just stuff that we basically already did in the last tasks. But this time we have a component called presentational. So that's new in code line 22. But what we need to do here is we need to create our connected component. And we connect it to Redux with the connect method. We use both, so the map state to props and the map dispatch to props. And then we use the new presentational. And here we can now see it. You can also try changing the connect's arguments to null. But I believe we're already done. So we can proceed to connect Redux to the Messages app. And yet again, lots of code, but we only want to just code line 88, create a container, use our connect method. I want to connect the presentational once again to Redux. Let's use map state to props and map dispatch to props. Just like we did in the last task, and here's our presentational. So that's nothing new, it has just a new name, now it's called container. And then we need to go to our app wrapper, and we want to use the container here. In simple terms, we'll just change our return statement in code line 96. We don't need the null. Instead, we need our provider, and nested inside is the container as our child component. And don't forget to store here as a prop. but then everything works. We'll move on to extract local state into Redux. First we go to our presentation component. It's in code line 30. We'll remove the messages property right here, code line 35. Don't forget to delete the comma after input as well. We don't need it anymore. Next, we modify the submit message. Where is it? And there it is, code line 44. Let me just delete this code line here, 47. And then I change 45 to this dot props. So we've used props here. And we need our submit, but it's a submit new message. This dot state dot input again. And we need to set the state to an empty input. Well, let me check, I've got one parenthesis too many. And the comma can get deleted, but now we should be good here. And now we'll modify the render method. So it's code line 50. And we should be good until code line 57 or 59. Everything can stay that way. You know what, let me write that from scratch. Instead of finding these little details that we need to adjust, it's better if I just type it in like so. But we need our props instead of our state. It uses message and IDX. And then we'll return our list item. Now I just have to check my parentheses, but this should be the code line, so you need to change state to props, and then everything should run. And here we have our input again on the right hand side, or we can add elements to an unordered list. And I believe this is the final one. We just have to use console.log to print out a message. And indeed, we are done here. So next up are our portfolio projects. I haven't yet looked into them, but as always I try to solve them one by one and upload it on a weekly basis. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.